Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the NorthField podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Gordon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of the program today. Really thankful to have this conversation with a dear friend of mine, Mike Colaw. He is the pastor of Trinity Wesleyan Church in Indianapolis. And we talk about community. We're going to talk about friendship, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to have intentionality in our friendships. And that's going to be the bulk of the podcast, but we're going to be touching on some topics and some subjects that are maybe not kosher to have the conversation with, because I said Trinity Wesleyan, and if you guys know, I'm not a Wesleyan, and I land in a Reformed camp, in a Reformed Baptist camp, and so we have ideas and theology that we don't agree on, and we touch on some of that. And I want to reiterate that you don't have to be friends with people and always agree with them. And if you think that people agreeing with you all the time is the prerequisite for you being friends with somebody, you're going to be a lonely person. And so we have conversations, and listen, it's okay to disagree. It's okay, and have respectful conversations about these things. We don't have to rip each other's lungs out and these things, and we don't have to lose our convictions over what we think is true and right. So looking forward to this conversation. I pray it edifies you. I pray that it challenges you and helps you in your walk this week. Welcome to the NorthField podcast, Pastor Mike Colaw. How in the world are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. It is really good to get to connect. Gosh, it's been too many years, and it's good to see your face.
Yeah, it's good to see yours as well. I know we're friends on social media, and we see each other's stuff, and I see you guys doing stuff with your family, and you guys are moving and grooving up there in Indianapolis, and things are going well there. So how was your Christmas?
It was really good. Of course, we have there's the church side of that answer, and then there's the personal side. Yeah. The church side is good. I mean, we've got a number of campuses around the city, and so the staff is they're going bananas trying to work everything in, and the different locations have different outreach events.
Right.
So they've all got a community outreach event that they do. The downtown location does like this arts and jazz festival thing, and one of the locations in the suburbs does this like North Pole experience where they do like an outside, kind of. Nice. And so each of the places they all do their own thing. So between all the services and the outreach events and stuff, it was madness. But they're amazing, and I love our team so much, and I'm so grateful. Personal side, it's honestly just wonderful to be with family, and that's that intimacy, being close with family is so important to me.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I've known your dad, your family for decades, and we've been friends. Your dad came to pastor at First Wesleyan here in Bartlesville. Golly, I was in maybe 6th, 7th grade at the time. So neighborhood.
Wow.
And I remember that was a hot minute ago. But we've known you guys for a long time, and one of the things that I've noticed you put out there, and because I remember growing up with you, and we weren't like close friends, we were acquaintances, and we hung out a little bit. But one of the things that I wanted to just focus on is you had a core group of fellas, of men that were friends with you, and you guys did stuff together growing up, but you guys now have all drifted apart. Everybody's on different places on the map in America, but you guys try to dedicate a time where you all come together for like a weekend and just do life together over that weekend, and you have this intentionality. How important is genuine friendship in the Christian context?
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things come to mind. One is we had we were very blessed when we were young. We were, and of course you were too. We were actually both a part of really dynamic youth groups growing up.
Yeah.
And for us, our youth pastor Eddie, he gathered us together. We were young, and I remember we were all hanging out, and he introduced this idea. We were like in seventh grade, eighth grade, right in that pocket. He introduced this idea of accountability. We had never really known that before, like accountability. So we were at a spiritual retreat. God was moving. It's kind of a classic camp thing where it's like Thursday night, everybody's crying at the altar and rededicating their lives to Jesus.
Right.
And Eddie basically sat down with us and was like, "Hey, you know what? I want to introduce you." Eddie Shigley did, to the idea of an accountability group, and he kind of walked us through that basic framework of what it means to walk in confession. Like, what does it mean to speak what is true about what is in you? And then like, if you're using kind of classic church language, then even speak like the blessing. So others speak
Sure.
what is true about you from God over you, and what it means then to have people hold you accountable. To speak truth into you and to live up to you. And their desire is not only to be close to you, but their desire is for you to be close to God, and that's the primary driver of the relationship. And so years ago, when he did that, there's a handful of us. So James Wall, Aaron Stroman, Lance Wyatt, David Stewart, Jeremy Little, and myself. We're kind of the ones that others came and go over the years,
Sure.
but we were kind of the ones that just, I mean, more than 20 years just have continued to engage on a regular basis in those ways. And that's it. It's basically just opening up our lives. Those are the people in whom I hold no secrets. And so anything that they ask, from how much money I make to what I'm doing with my time, even internet accountability, I mean, they have total access to my life. And that confession, speaking what is true, they get to speak what is true over my life, and I do over theirs. And that level of transparency just created an intimacy between us that's really awesome. And it's centered on our love of God and our desire for each of us to be close to God.
Yeah. That's and that for some reason, like we romanticize the idea in the church, but when it
Yeah.
comes to actual practicality and actually putting, shoes to the pavement, it falls
Yeah.
flat. Why do you think that? Why do you think it falls flat?
Well, I think there are a couple different things. I think that and post 2020, I mean, like for sure, the movement towards the digital experience, a lot of people in this world view the digital experience as a qualifying supplement for real in-person relationships, and it's just not. That's part of it. But I do think, even as a precursor to that, is this idea that if I believe that the people that are closest to me are the ones that are supporting what I want in life, my relationships are only as secure as the consistency of my desires,
Mm,
right? So what I mean by that is, if one day I really want to get in shape and really want to work out, and I want to surround myself with people that get in shape and work out, then those relationships are really solid and they're really strong and they're holding me accountable. But the day I don't want to do that, now those same core relationships are keeping me from the new thing that I want.
right,
And
right.
so then it's like I got to find a new set of friends and a new group of people to support my new desires and my new wants. And so I think, really, in all honesty, you can't have time transcendent friendships until you attach yourself to things that are time transcendent. And the
Mm,
most true thing about me
come
isn't
on.
me, it's God.
Yeah.
And so the more we sit down as a group and go, whether we're old or young, whether we're doctoral students or only graduated from high school, it doesn't matter. The very most core thing of who we are isn't whether we like to work out right now or whether we want to enjoy, whether we're married or single. The most true
Yeah.
thing about us is God.
Yeah.
And the more that we articulate that as a group, our love of God, our pursuit of God, God is the core of who we are, it gives us something to bind ourselves to that is more transcendent than any pastime, hobby, preference, liking, change of mind. So I think the core of this, and really what the world loses, is something to attach themselves to that's more transcendent than something temporary. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. No, you've got, and because here's the thing, we're only here for a finite amount of time. And eventually, I mean, we're going to be moving on at some point. I mean, we all have an end date, right? Like
Yeah.
that's been set. And so the end date's coming. And if we're pursuing and chasing things that are here, then a lot of times it's going to fall flat. But
Yeah.
if we're pursuing Christ and we put people that are in the middle of that are in our lives that are also pursuing Christ, there's going to be a sweetness to the relationships, I think, and it's going
Yeah.
to be.
Yep. A good way to even think about some of this, at least for me, has been like, take for example, if you played sports in high school. So I played football for a little bit in high school, and I had football friends. And on all honesty, I spent a ton of time with them while I was doing that. So it's
Yeah,
like hours every day. You go and hang out with them on a Friday night. You spend time with, I mean, like you're with these people all the time. But
right.
as soon as football comes to an end, the relationships begin to dissolve
Sure.
because the core of the relationship was a very temporary thing.
Mhm.
And so the reality is putting transcendent Christ in the core of your relationship actually gives you an anchor that is it's stronger than all these temporary things that come and go with time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, really, in all honesty, the secret to our group has not been a hobby, a pastime, a common education level. It's not been a common income level. Some of us have done very well financially. Others are struggling more financially. Some of us are really highly educated. Some of us, only went to high school. None of those things are the core of who we are. The core of who we are is time transcendent Christ. And that alone is an incredible anchor that is rewarding, incredibly rewarding too.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because everybody has, and that's the beauty of the church, is that there's so many different types of people that fall into the camp in the church, and they have all these different hobbies and ideas and things that they love, things that they hate, but the common denominator is Christ. And so when you have the Lord Jesus at the center of those things, those relationships, that everything else sort of kind of revolves around that reality, right? And
Yeah.
so I I look at the world in which we live, like it's chaos, it's weird, I mean, just when you think, okay, it can't get any weirder, you turn on the
Mhm.
news and it gets weirder. So
Mhm.
this idea of community, I mean, I think that there's going to come a season and a time where we're gonna need one another. We had in the before I hit the record button, we were talking about this idea of genuine
Mhm.
community, because we live in the world right now of mega church this, mega church that, and you know, for all the things that it is and all the things that it's not, the idea of having community in those environments can sometimes be difficult. How can um with the crazy that I personally think is coming, how do you think that having genuine Christ honoring community can help?
Yeah. Well, I think in my mind, even before that, I think there's the reality that the first person that we have to learn to get along with rightly is, in a sense, as odd as it is, uh, is ourselves. I mean, like, and you can't. But even we alone are inconsistent. Like you go to bed. You wake up one morning. It's New Year's Day, and you want to be the best you and get in shape, and you're proud of all that. And
Read
then
my
by the
Bible.
time you eat, yeah, that's right. Read my Bible, and then by the time you go to bed, you're tired and want to binge Netflix and eat cake.
Yep.
And so you aren't even consistently true to you. And
Well,
so I think a lot of there is a relational cognitive dissonance that people have even within themselves. And
mhm.
so to compass even yourself around Christ and go, what I do with my time, what I do with my energy, what I do with my talents, what I do, I mean, all of who I am, if I compass that around the transcendent Christ, it doesn't only give me the ability to connect with others, it gives me the ability to be able to connect with myself in a consistent way. So whether I want cheesecake or want to get in shape, the decision can be made by the truer me, which is Christ in me. And
Mhm.
so I really think that, as funny as this sounds, you can't be committed to a group of people well until you yourself are committed to something that's transcendent and reliable. Um, what kind of a committed person are you going to be to a group that wants to get deeper in the Word of God when you're only deeper in the Word of God when you want to be? So like
Yeah. Man.
you can't be a consistent participant in a group of friends until you have compassed yourself along with something that's more consistent than your mere appetites and desires. And
Yeah.
so I really think the first thing before anything else, before going look for this in a group of friends, pay attention to these things, these are the kind of conversations to have before any of that can take place, you have to look in the mirror and go, what am I going to compass myself by? I cannot be merely led by my appetites that come and go based on the day or whatever the day is. So I think that's the first thing is you got to look in the mirror and go, what am I going to compass my life by? And then if you choose Christ, his ways, which I think is the God of the universe is the most time transcendent,
Yep.
reliable. When you say this is what I'm going to compass my life by, then you have something consistent to offer a group.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Man, that's well said. That's perfect. I just you went through so many. There was even you made some social media posts and some videos in regards to how you guys work in your sense of
Yeah,
community, and I think that's like we were. I don't know. I just being a and maybe you can speak to this and say yes and
yeah,
amen or no you're crazy. But I think in ministry it can sometimes be lonely
yeah,
and it can just because that vulnerability we don't want to just say hey yeah you know what I am struggling with some
right,
anxiety I am struggling with some lust I am struggling whatever that is and we don't
right,
want because we don't want people to think well oh my gosh my pastor's a mess well I mean
yeah,
yeah I mean sometimes we can be but by the grace of God we don't stay there
yeah,
we pursue holiness and righteousness that's the calling but just to be able to articulate that with friends to articulate that especially for us as guys because women can do that
yeah,
you Branson and you see in Branson
right,
when the buses open up it's not a bunch of old dudes getting out of the buses and bebopping down it's a bunch of gray-headed old ladies and so
yeah,
ladies I think have this sense of community down way better than we as men do uh,
right,
and I think that's maybe a cultural thing that we've done to ourselves where we said okay
yeah,
no, I'm a rock. I'm an island. I don't need anybody. And the truth is, we do need each other.
yeah,
And if we're not surrounding ourselves with other men, other Christians that are pushing us towards looking to Jesus as the author and perfecter of our faith, then I think
yeah,
it's gonna have this fizzle effect. And I think that's the reason we see so many people dropping out, and we have
hmm,
I mean, just apostasy left and right. And we have people that are
yep,
really good, Christians in the church, and they're just jumping ship and like, what happened? And I think it boils down to um, people
yeah,
not valuing biblical community. I don't know. Speak to that. I guess.
yeah, yeah. That's, I mean, well, you're right on. I think a couple of different things in that. No, I mean, number one, gosh, as a theology guy, even myself, Christianity, the tenets of core Christianity as a set of propositions or ideas to believe in and agree to and adhere to, that is really important. So, like, whatever, the Apostles' Creed, Chalcedonian Creeds, whatever. I mean, whatever movement you're from, as
Sure.
long as those core central Christian doctrines are there that baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, like these core Christian ideas, to know them and agree to them, that's essential, absolutely essential. But we have to remember, even the demons believe and tremble, or even the demons believe and tremble. Like uh, Christianity is not merely knowing a set of truths and agreeing that they're true. It has to be truths embodied in who we are.
Come on.
And so, like what I work really hard to do in the church is make sure that the church is not merely so to use educational language, pedagogically speaking, to
Mhm.
make sure that the church is not merely a delivery of information, but
Come
it
on.
is a community to practice a truth.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the church is not a lecture hall, though there is a lecture component to it.
Sure.
That's not
Sure.
what it is. The church is a family in which you practice your faith out with each other. It requires the participation. Um, and somewhere along the line, the church made a shift where it became more about products being produced rather than people that we do life with.
Mhm.
And so I think in the local church, one of the things that we have to really reclaim is the idea that this is not merely a place of ideas, though it is a place of ideas. It's not merely a place of ideas.
Right.
It is a place where ideas are embodied.
Come on.
And so we want you to be a part of this. I actually, comically speaking, I didn't realize you were talking about this. We are, the whole of 2024, we're really leaning in heavy with all of our campuses. And I actually wrote a book that I've released to the church, but I haven't released it publicly yet. Though it did just go live on Amazon yesterday, 2 days ago, and you don't even know this.
I didn't know
But
this. It's just
yeah, so
how
friendship
convenient.
redefined. Yeah,
Right. That's
friendship
awesome.
redefined. And it's literally teaching our congregation what it means. I mean, what it means to have spiritual friendship.
Mm.
What are those absolute key components that you have to internally be able to embrace? What does it mean that I can be compassed so then I can offer something to a group? And then what am I looking for in a group with other people? Yeah, so I mean, I think that's huge. And so that basic framework, more than anything else, has to begin with this idea that Christianity for us, the church, is not merely a place of ideas, though it is a place of ideas, but it is a place where ideas are practiced and embodied. So
Yeah.
you have to participate in the community or you're not really doing what church is supposed to do.
Yeah. I 100% agree. It's one of those things that I am mystified by the people who are nominal church attenders. Like they go once a month or once every month and a half. And it's one of those things where I'm like, if that was your family, if you did that with
Yeah,
your family, I mean, if I did that with my wife and I showed up at my
right,
house once a
right,
month and I spent an
right.
hour with my wife once a month, what's my relationship going to look like? Like it's going to
Yeah,
be a mess. It's not
yeah,
going to be intimate. It's not going to be vibrant. It's going to be hostile and it's going to be a
yeah.
cold. I'm going to come in and I'm going to take what I want for the hour I'm here and then I'm leaving. And
That's right.
that's not family. That's not community. That's not biblical. And,
Right.
and
Well, I
so,
think
yeah,
yeah, that's right. And I think even jumping back to your earlier thing, one thing about being a pastor, I think one of the primary ways to reduce loneliness for the pastor is the pastor has to cultivate an environment where relationships, real, transparent, healthy relationships are a part of the community. And when they are a part of the community, it's just a natural byproduct for the pastor to be able to participate. So if
yeah,
you train a group of people that they're only supposed to be entertaining ideas or entertained in general at church, you're going to feel distant even if they're doing exactly, because if the people are doing exactly what you taught them to do, they're not being intimate with you.
right,
um, and so you do have to, I mean, that's this. You've got to
right.
cultivate a group of people that have the capacity to do relationship. And here's the thing too. I have this sneaking suspicion, and a lot of this came out of my doctoral work, especially in year 3. I'm not finished yet. I'm still working on my dissertation right now. I'm in the last stages of it, Lord willing. And so I haven't defended it yet. I'm not finished, but I'm getting
Yeah,
close. And in a lot of that research, the reality is I am discovering with relationships in general, I'm discovering that people are able to download excellence. Like if you're looking for the best music, you can download it on
sure.
the fly. People can download, if you're looking for the best communicator, you can download it on the fly.
Oh man, yeah,
If you're That's right, best music, best information, best lecture, best ideas, best, I mean, you can download excellence really easily. You can't really download intimacy. You can download variants of intimacy,
yeah,
but not full intimacy. And
right.
so the church of tomorrow, yes, they need to get information right, but the church of tomorrow is going to have to lean into what cannot be downloaded. And what can't be downloaded is the intimacy. So as the churches that figure out how to become more personal are the ones that will actually have people present. Because if they're just about producing a product, why go to church at all? You can download excellence easily. Does that make
100%.
sense?
No, and yeah, no, and that was one of the things that really, man, I think that COVID and all the stuff that online church stuff sort of kind of messed up is we, I guess it showed
Right.
us that, well, shoot, I can watch Mike online. I don't even need to
Right.
I don't need to leave my pajamas. I don't need to go to my church. And it gives us
Right.
an excuse to get away from that. But then we're like, golly, I just wish I had somebody around to just pray with me. Well, then go to your local church.
Yeah.
You can't get a podcast to pray for you. You can't get
Right.
you need interactions. You need to have fellowship. You need to have community. And you can only really genuinely find that kind of stuff in the local New Testament church where it's going to be played out for eternity.
Right.
Like you can go to the bar and have community. I get that. But it's going to fall flat because
Yeah.
eventually the alcohol is going to run dry. You're going to get old. Look at us. So,
Yeah. That's right. It happens.
it happens, right? And so eventually that's going to fall flat. What happens when you die? Where's that? What's that look like? What
Yeah.
those kind of questions can't get answered in a bar or on a poker night. You have to be with a group of godly men and women who are going to say, okay,
Yeah.
here's who Jesus is, here's what Christ has done. So I just
Well, and one of the I think there are a number of different things in here, but one of the primary metaphors that I use throughout the book is this idea that we are we are not greater in our independence; we're greater in interdependence. Like we're made to need other people.
Yeah.
And the metaphor that I use is in throughout the book is this idea of you're a puzzle piece. So like if you take a puzzle piece, if you imagine one in your mind, it's got like the protrusions, the parts that stick out,
Yeah.
and then it's got like the intrusions, the parts that are in there, and they fit together. That's what holds it tight is as they fit together. If you have a puzzle piece that has none of the protrusions or the intrusion part, it's just like a square, it
Yeah.
easily falls apart. It doesn't stay together, it just slides. So like you need the gifting of other people, which the odd thing is in our culture, we see needing another person as a weakness.
Mm.
But like biblically speaking, I mean, even like think of the APEST, apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher. I mean, we even know through scripture that God creates people with gifting, which means he creates people on purpose that need the gifting, right? So like, and I'm not talking about sin issues. Like I'm not talking about like an addiction to pornography,
Sure. No,
but
no, no.
but like literal things like, hey, I'm not good at math. Or hey, I'm not a really good organizer. Or hey, I'm really good at organizing, but I've never been really good at like relationship stuff. Or
Yeah.
I'm really good at music, and I'm not good at music, but I love to listen to music. Like all of the unique things that make us us. It is imperative that we are honest about our gifting. We're really good at that in the West, but we're also honest about our needs of other people. And so, like, I've even thought, I've not done this, but I was speaking at a group of pastors for a group of pastors here before the holidays hit. And I encouraged them, I was walking them through this idea of interdependence. Like, you're actually stronger when you admit your needs of other people. And I was like, go back and do a personality test again. I don't care which one you choose, right? Like Myers-Briggs, whatever. And when you do the personality test, go around the room and instead of bragging about your gifting, everybody make very clear your area of needing another person.
Mm.
So like
Interesting.
when it hits you, do the personality test again.
Sure.
And when it gets to you, we always talk about the gifting, the area that we're good. So it's like, hey, I'm really good with numbers. Why don't you hit it when it comes to you this time? Go, you know what? I really need help with interpersonal skills. And then as that need is voiced around the room, be able to go, hey, I could help with that. Or it's like, I'm not
Right.
really good at organizing. Hey, I could help with that. And so I really do think like one of the ideas in this, one of the core pieces of this is getting a group of people together in whom they make it normal to celebrate not only their strengths, but even celebrate their areas of needing other people. That's so important. And it gives you the capacity to grow like a puzzle, to grow
Right.
tighter and tighter with that group. Where now they know I've got an important role to play in Mike's life. Hey,
Yeah.
this is one thing Caleb can really help me with, but I know Caleb really needs me in this area.
Right.
And celebrating that uniqueness and realizing God created us on purpose with the need of another person.
Come on, man. I love that. Man, I love that. So, okay. So is that book available? You can purchase it online?
Yeah, you can. I did this one. We did this one self-published, though I've got a great team and they did a great job editing it. It should be live, especially if you're posting. It should be live now on Amazon. If you just go to, in fact, I can even check and see if it's up now. But it should be live on Amazon. It's just called Friendship Redefined by Mike Colaw. Let me check it out again. Nice. And let's see. Friendship Redefined. Let me see. Let me make sure this is live. Yeah, it is. And it literally just went up. So there's no purchases, no nothing. It's brand new. So you're the first.
Yes.
I mean, yay! I gave my church, we've already printed these off and handed them out to the whole church. So my church has them all, but it's just as of now, public and up.
Go buy the book, folks. Come on. We're only in the just a few days into January. Come on. You can still get
That's right. And what I do, since I publish through my church, and we have a printer that goes to the church. Since I'm able to do this all internally, sure. I make all of the stuff that I make as cheap or free as possible. So if you're an Amazon Prime user, it's free. You just download it and read it. If you're not a Prime user, I think it costs 99 cents. I think that's right. But
it's cheaper than a latte.
Yeah, dude, I 100%. That's for the digital version. To buy the book would be more expensive, sure. But for the digital version, you can get it for nothing. But definitely, it's worth checking out. Yeah. So there you go.
So you still got your blog and all that kind of fun stuff? You still writing and all that?
I do. Most of my I haven't done a lot. That's a great question. I haven't done a lot on the Luke 1:17 as of late for two reasons. One is I've been immersed in writing this and working on my dissertation for the last year. And then I've just been, most of the stuff I've been doing lately has just been on Facebook. I feel like more people are active on Facebook than 100%. They are like a blog.
I'm going to put this,
and so
this will be online, Facebook. That's where it's going. At YouTube. So.
Yeah. And so I feel like I just get more engagement from that. The blog is broader. I mean, definitely with the blog, I'll have people that will write in from like Uganda and they're like, oh, I stumbled across this. That's so awesome. But within my connected group, they're way more involved in Facebook. Maybe that makes me old. The kids, whatever they're using today is something different, I'm sure.
These days, I'm telling you. But yeah, no, that's fantastic. So if somebody's wanting to get in touch with you, figure out what's going on in your world, ministry wise, they can find you on Facebook. They can find you we'll plug
you could just
website.
Yeah, and you can just tag me in the if you want, you can just tag me whenever you post this to Facebook and jump in. I love the conversations. It's fun to learn and grow together. I find I'm definitely in a season of learning. And so I love to learn. I love to grow. I love to think stuff through. And so I'll post ideas, even some ideas that I'm still working through on social media. And it's always fun to get people's thoughts and feedback. And the other thing I think that's cool about the internet, this is a little bit of a side note, but I think it does play into the connectedness too. I think God is beginning to work some miraculous stuff when it comes to like the ecumenical church, like the church as a whole. Okay. Like we went to, for example, a couple of my worship leaders are involved with Asbury. So they went to the Asbury revival and helped out with it. I took my kids to it too. I don't know. Did you hear about the Asbury revival?
I did. Yep.
And so I was there. I went to it, and in fact, some of my staff actually helped with it, and it was really cool. It was cool just to kind of go and check out. Who knows what the Lord will do with this long term? Yeah. All I know is this: there's a whole bunch of young people that are excited about Jesus, and I'm going to celebrate that with everything that I can.
That's awesome. All right, we're taking a small break here. Just want to say thanks to our friends at Outpost Coffee for providing us with incredible caffeinated beverages. Quick, just little ad here for Outpost. They have been such good folks to us and great coffee. In fact, I'm drinking a cup of their coffee right now, and it's fantastic. So check these guys out at outpostcoffeeco.com. And also I want to say thanks to Scott Gillette for putting his shoulder to the wheel and supporting this podcast. If you're looking for insurance, he is the guy to get in touch with. He's my insurance guy, Scott Gillette. You'll see his information in the show notes. Give him a shout. he would love to help you with all of your insurance needs. Okay, now that the advertising is over with, we're going to get back into the conversation with Pastor Mike.
There is this growing desire for this ecumenical coming together of Christians that I'm at least beginning to sense within the city. And it may not be true in smaller communities yet, but at least within the city, there's this desire for Christians to want to come together. And, the old proverb, I'm sure you've heard it before, when there's an enemy at the gate, brothers will stop quarreling or brothers will stop battling. Yeah. And the idea is, that, brothers that are fighting with each other and, this is mine, it's yours. But when an enemy comes to the gate, those brothers that were quarreling they're together.
I think there's going to come a time where we're going to have to lock shields.
That's right.
It is a serious thing. And I listen, there are certain things that I will, this is the cool thing about this is that I know that you and I, we're in different theological camps. And this is the beauty of genuine, because if everybody had to believe like me, I'd be a lonely guy. And so I love that you and I, we land in different theological camps on I think certain issues. But I can tell you this much: I know that you love Christ. I know that His word is the authoritative. The word, His word, is the authoritative foundation in your life, and that the church is the primary organization that we should be pushing all our chips in on.
That's right.
When I see that and I hear that, hey, this is, what's hilarious? This is the second podcast where I had a daughter come in and just love on a dad. I love this. It's
the best. You want to say hi, Kara?
I don't know who you are, but hi.
That's Caleb.
Hi there. It's good to meet you. I'm Caleb. Great to meet you.
She is number 4 in my lineup, and she's fantastic.
Why are you crying?
Oh, I'm not crying.
Oh.
Do I look like I'm crying?
Yes.
Oh, Caleb made me sad. No,
that's how we roll. That's how we roll.
Are you growling? I love you, honey. Thank you. You're beautiful.
That's awesome.
Good to see you.
Are you talking to him about this?
I was.
We
a little
are.
bit.
Yep.
Is that okay with you? That I passed the test? All right. Let me finish this, and then I'll come and get you some friends. So, one of the things that comes to my mind, even I'm finding conversation. I love you too very much. One of the conversations that comes to my mind, and I don't know, this probably wouldn't be. You can share this or not. It's up to you. But I'm trying to think of a good example. A difference might be women in ministry. Let's take that as one.
Sure.
So absolutely. When you begin to really get into the guts, and different groups have different stances on this, right? So, and really what it comes down to is the question of what is an elder? What exactly is an elder?
Sure.
Well, there are whole Christian movements. So biblically speaking, in between my master's and my doctorate, so after I did my first master's at Wesley and before I did my doctoral work, I wanted to get a better grasp on Reformed theology. So I did a bunch of online classes through DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary, and a few other schools. I did a couple. They just have those the big online ones, the MOOC ones or whatever. So nothing deep or official, but just to get a better grasp of it all.
Sure.
And I was blown away between each of my degrees, looking in different camps, how they view that phrase or the work of an elder. What is an elder?
Sure.
And so as Christians as a whole become more educated, all of a sudden you sit back and you go, oh, we're not rebelling against each other. We're reading this through different lenses.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so, because you and I would definitely read that through different lenses. Because I look at 1 Timothy and I see the elder role as an exclusive masculine thing, and right. Obviously you don't. And this is where I want to try to get to here, is that just because I don't agree with it, because here's what we've done it really started the end of 2019 into 2020.
Right.
Was, if I don't agree with you, we can't be friends anymore. And that's a lie. That's right. A lie. You can still have community, still be friends with someone who has a different view on things. Now, if you looked at me and said, "Listen, I believe that you can get to heaven any way, shape, or form," and it doesn't. Right. There's many roads to Jesus, or there's many roads to heaven, and Jesus is just one. I would look at you and go, "Well, I probably can't have fellowship with you." If we have some disagreements on biblical teachings, we can walk through that respectfully and as
Right.
friends, and not
Right.
like crunch each other's throats. And I think
Right.
that's the problem in which we live, because I land more in a reform community. And that this is one of the things that I love and I hate at the
Right.
same time with our is we have this purist mindset, which is I love, I'm glad,
Right.
but
Right.
sometimes we can just want to beat each other into the ground. And I'm like, that's not really helpful. And I think there's a way to communicate and say, okay, here's where I stand from the biblical perspective. Show me from the text why you think
Right.
X, Y, or Z, and then be able to work that out together and
Right. That's right.
and take time with one another. Because it's back to what I said, the pagans are at the door trying to rip our kids
Right.
in half. And
Right.
what are we doing? Like there are certain times to have those discussions. I'm not saying I got some really
Right.
good Presbyterian friends that baptize their babies, and I think that that's crazy.
Right.
That's just,
Right. Right.
that's,
Right.
that's
Right.
right. And so
Right.
I have to look through a different lens of that and respectfully understand what they're doing. And this
Yeah.
is what they're doing. I know that they don't believe that the water saves them, but they're, we're working through this together. And so we have
Yeah.
this, I have
Conversation.
friends that don't believe like me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. And again, the beauty is like the church actually is way more unified than we realize when we start to include church history. So like, I mean, we don't, like even the baptism of babies, we would align more with you all in that there has to be a choice to choose the baptism, right? Like if you're not choosing it, how's that?
Believer's baptism, right?
Right, that's exactly right. And I remember really wrestling with that until I had a long conversation. I think I have a baby screaming in the background. I apologize.
It's okay.
But until I had a long conversation with a historian about it, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I get what. So they have catechism, right? So they baptize the baby. It is a promise of the church and the people to raise the child in faith. That's what happens, right? And then at the end of catechism, when they're old enough, then they do what they call confirmation. So in a sense, their baptism is a multi-year huge span that begins in that moment and ends with confirmation. We just don't see it because we think about only that moment. And so like, this is again where church history really helps us show we're not nearly as far apart as we think we are.
Yeah. And our language sometimes can get really weird and it could jump back and forth. But I told my Presbyterian friend, I said, so you basically tell me it's a wet baby dedication. So, and so he was like, yeah, I guess you could do that. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. I just, and again, I think the beauty of this, this is exactly right. I mean, the beauty of this is it gives us, and I find this to be especially true among more and more of the young Christians. They're not giving up their traditions. What they're doing is they're trying to figure out where they came from and why they're there.
Sure. And
as they're doing that, they're finding that they don't have to be enemies with everybody that they thought they had to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I one of the things that I've been wrestling in my own personal journey is my own personal eschatology. And I've been wrestling with that. And because for years I was a tribulation rapture guy. And I still very much I'm still leaning that way, but I'm still, that I've been studying postmillennialism, amillennialism, all these other studies. And I have a ton of friends that don't believe like me, and I still love them. Like I still want to fellowship with them. They can still come to my house and eat my food and hang out. And we have respectful conversations with one another. And we
at the end of the day, here's the thing. Pick any of these. If it's, gosh, I don't know. If it's the eschatology bent, at the end of the day, Caleb, when you and I are sitting in heaven and we find out that it didn't play out the way we wanted,
right?
It's cool.
I'm still there.
As long as I'm with Jesus, I'm real happy.
We're still there.
If we get to heaven, and Jesus is like, here's the deal. The view that, whatever group had of what an elder is yeah, it was not just to those people at that time in history it was to all
Right.
people because of it is. And I find out that I'm wrong gladly. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't care. What I care about is being present with Jesus.
Come on.
And every other little nuance preference thing in a heartbeat, I change my mind on if Jesus told me, like, it's no problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
from eschatology to women in ministry to you name it. The thing for me to hang on is not how I'm interpreting the text right now, which may continue to grow as I grow.
Sure.
The thing I'm hanging on is my relentless, deep, passionate love of Jesus that I am going to follow to the last breath that I have with the help of God.
Come on.
You know, that's the thing that pulls me forward. And I think young people are wanting more than they're wanting people that agree with exactly how they see things right now. There's a young, growing, passionate group of Christians that are looking for people that are radically in love with Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see what that turns into.
Yeah.
It really will.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like, even when people come to the church, people come to our church that grew up Catholic, that grew up more Reformed, that grew up whatever, Presbyterian, you name it.
Yeah.
And they come and they join the church, and they'll ask me all kinds of nuanced questions. And usually what I tell them is this: at the feet of Jesus, all are welcome, and none will be left the same. And all that to say, theology does matter. All that to
Sure.
say,
That's-
there should be councils. Yep, that's right.
It
All that to
does.
say, theology does matter. All that
Yeah.
to say, there absolutely should be councils. All that to say, that we have to have those conversations. They do need to take place. And dude, my commitment is to Christ. It's not to my tradition. It's to Christ.
Come on.
And I value the unique things about my tradition too.
Yeah.
And so,
I do too. And this is what I love is that you and I have this conversation, and we're, at the end of the day, I don't hate you, you don't hate me, just because we disagree on certain topics
Yeah.
or certain ideas. We respectfully listen, and we hear
Yeah.
those things. We say, okay, I see where you're coming from. I
Yeah.
understand it. I'm gonna pray and ask the Lord to give me some insight on certain things as well, and just
Yeah.
help me to walk beside you, and help.
Yeah.
I want to see where you're at. I want to help, and know that Jesus is King at the end of the day, and His word is the thing that we stand on, and we have to
Yeah.
align ourselves in that vein, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
So,
Man, and the beauty of this too is we don't have to. Well, like, I mean, gosh, I mean, we're picking on the women ministry thing, which is actually kind of fun to do. It's like, what we need to do is get like Wayne Grudem and NT Wright in a room and let them fight it out. Because
right.
the truth is like, I don't need people to debate. To my perspective, the reality is there are scholars and thinkers that are way smarter than me that wrestle through this stuff.
Me too.
And they respect each other, so why can't we?
Well,
And and so I think, like, and by the way, I love Wayne Grudem. I've really enjoyed the systematic theology course that I did. The online one with him was wonderful. It's going to be interesting to see how this all does kind of play out. I will say, from my personal perspective, I do believe, even as a Wesleyan, I do believe that there are unique things. So like, there's either male and female, slave free, whatever. I do think that is not an elimination of positions, but it's an elimination of hierarchy of value. So like, I personally believe that there is a uniqueness to being male, and I believe that there is a uniqueness to being female. And I believe that trying to erase those uniquenesses does away with God's creative handiwork.
Sure.
And so somehow in this grand narrative, if the extreme solution is erase what it means to be female and erase what it means to be male, that can't be right. That's not biblically sound.
It's not. No, it's not at all. It's God's. We're equal in our humanity, and
That's right.
we're 100% equal in our humanity. God's just given us different roles, and that's not a bad thing. It should be celebrated as a thing that God has set forth and made a reality, right?
Right.
So it'd be like, my dad used to say this.
Yeah.
Anything that has anything that's headless is dead. Anything that's got more than two heads is a freak. And so you've got to have a head,
Right.
And who ultimately is our head, right? Christ.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and I'm not vying for his position. I don't want
Right.
his. There was a guy that did that, and we're still having consequences because of that guy.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so I want to submit myself to Christ and his word and follow him supremely. That's my goal.
Yeah. It really is beautiful, the whole church. And, and then of course, this because you're a pastor too, you just have the complexity of trying to figure out the weird, like, for instance, at our inner city location, we have a whole lot of fatherless families.
Yeah.
And
Epidemic.
so to like teach that, like, so the spiritual instruction of the home, and that like these kind of unique roles that we tend to put on the father. And then you have a single mom come up to you and go, "Can I be the spiritual head of my home?" And we go, no, you can't. I'm sorry, single mom, you can't be the spiritual head of your home. Like, clearly it's better for her to try to mentor her kids in faith. And clearly it's not ideal that she doesn't have a husband. Like, both of those are true.
Yeah.
It would be better if she had a really great marriage and a really great home and a really great providing husband who deeply loved Jesus and was teaching truths to the kids about God. And that would be better. But she doesn't.
She doesn't.
And so I want her to be the spiritual head of her home, because she doesn't have another option.
Doing something if she wants. Yeah, I 100% don't disagree.
Right. And so like that end lies some of the complexity of all this too, where it's like, man alive, and so I guess we could, like, we want the pastor to feel some of those things maybe, but how do you, it's the joys of doing real world ministry.
Come on, bring it. Well, man, Mike, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us and be on the podcast. And I thought we were going to mainly talk about friendship, and it's been, I love, and this is the thing, as I'm one of those guys that, like, I have some atheists that are my friends. I have people that are not, that are friends that don't agree or believe like me. And I love that I've always wanted to be a guy that is maybe not the smartest guy in the room, but I want to be the most available, and I want to be the guy that is willing to at least be a listener, and then not afraid to interject my beliefs or my thoughts, but just to be like, well, Mike, you're dumb. And does that help you at the end of the day? No. Does that help me? No, it ostracizes us. And what does the enemy want to do? The enemy wants to push us aside and get us away from one another, because he knows if we're away from one another and we're not willing to communicate and have these dialogues, that you're going to end up ripping each other's throats out, and it's going to be just a problem later on in the end. And who wins the end of that one? The enemy.
Right.
And that's right. There's no point in that. Right.
When there's an enemy at the gate, the brothers stop quarreling.
We got to. And I think, and I really do genuinely believe the enemy is at our gates, and we've got to be aware. We've got to, as the scripture tells us, to be aware of our surroundings, because the enemy's like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And if I'm focused on fighting you, and the enemy comes up behind me or beside you and takes you out, I'm like, well, crud, what did I do?
Right.
So, man,
we need each other.
It's been encouraging to have this conversation. It's been good.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. I really appreciate you. And Caleb, man, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
You too, bro.
Yeah, it's good to get to connect.